Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show how to get data out of the MicMac GUI into Meshlab. And I'm going to start by clearing any files I have from before and copy the images. Look for those. I'm using the ET images. And it comes in. Next up, Tapioca and run. Okay, Tapioca type points are done. Go on to the pause step. I'm going to switch the operation down to orient final since there's only a small number of images, so I can run it all at once. Go ahead and run that. And result is good, everything is green. I'm going to close that, make a 3D preview. And there we go, it's looking good. Next up, I want to change the orientation so that it's not at that strange angle. I want to be standing up in the Z direction indicated by the blue axis. I'll use the SP glob bascule. I'm going to clear the selection and choose one of the images to use to set up the orientation. I'll start by putting a mask on the image. And what the mask will do is define the ground plane. And see, click here and escape. Okay, it's a small image, so I had to click on the display here and then push the escape button to make it finish loading. Now I can go ahead and draw the mask by just using the left mouse button. And I'll just go over here. And right click to finish that. And spacebar to select it. Now go in File and save the mask. And exit. And now on the same image, I'm going to define the points. Up here, I'm just going to define the X direction. And giving me a warning that the image may be too small. Okay. And there it is doing the pause again. I'll click and escape. Okay, I'm going to scroll in a little bit. Select line 1. And I'll put that over here. And I'll select line 2. And stick that at the end of the text line. And that should be good. Go ahead and exit. Close that. Now I'm going to come down to the calculate section. Tell it I want to use the ground plane to, well, the mask to define the ground plane. And I want to select all the images. And go ahead and run it. Calculate. Okay, calculation done. Close. I want to apply that calculation to the cameras and images. And still all green, as expected. Close that. And next to 3D preview, see that I got a good orientation. And now it's standing up in the Z direction. If I uncheck the center mesh, it'll move it over. You can see where I had the line 1 is the 0, 0, 0 origin point, I guess by default. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and put a mask on that. So I don't want all those extra points there in the background. I just want my ET character. I'm going to go ahead and make a mask, 3D, and scroll in, go to selection, I want point selection, and click, 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 and right click, and just like before, spacebar to select. And I'll go ahead and save the selection info, and exit. Now I'm finally ready to create the high density cloud. I'll go ahead for Big Mac to try to get as many points as I can. It's already set to use the mask, and go ahead and create the dense cloud. All right, all done. We got our point cloud. And now we'll take it into Meshlab. I'm going to push the Export Meshlab button. And that'll create a Meshlab project file. And set up my button so I can copy the text. So I'm going to go ahead and open Meshlab. Go. And back in the GUI, I'm going to copy the path. This is the path to the project file. I'll go to File, Open Project. And just paste that in. And that loads in all the cameras and their positions. And I'll go back and copy the PLY path, which is the points that make up the mesh, or will make up the mesh. I'll go in and I want to import mesh. And again, paste and open. And here we have them. Next step is we have a bunch of points. I want to make that into a mesh. I'm going to go to Filters, Remeshing, Simplification, and Reconstruction. And we're going to go down to Surface Reconstruction, Screen to Poisson. I just take the defaults, press Apply. And there we go. Got our mesh. I'm going to turn off the points here in the upper right. So we have just the result of the Poisson mesh showing. And next up, I want to create a texture map for it. So I'm going to go to Filters, Texture, and want parameterization plus texturing from registered rasters. I think registered rasters is their name for the images that were brought in. When I click that, I'll set it to 4096, I guess. Go ahead and click Apply. And that's done. I can close that. I want to change the appearance of the mesh. I'm going to click on this little symbol here, get rid of the shading, and change the color to user defined, which is the texture. And there we got the result. I can click on the lines here, the edge display. Oops, I mean up here in the layers panel. And I'll show how the mesh was created. Well, let me hide that and show you this. There's a little misalignment here. And that's, I think, caused by one of the images being a little bit off. So what you can do is show raster, show current raster mode, this button here. And I'll show the image in the model. And this button here, raster alignment. Oh no, my mistake. I'm thinking of something else. When I go to render, I want to show rasters to geometry reprojection, because I want to find out which of the images is bad first. So I'm going to deselect this show current raster mode, go back to render, rasters to geometry reprojection. I can go through the images one by one. And there I can see that number 8 is the one that's off from everybody else. What I can do is deselect that in this list here, and you'll go back to filters, texture, and run the texture from registered rasters again. I give it the same size, 4096, and just run it again. And close that. And make sure my Poisson mesh is selected, and set the display flags back to the way they were before. And turn off rasters to geometry. And we show the final result. And the text there is lined up better. And it's a little dense for what it is. What we can do is go to Filters, Remeshing, Simplification, Reconstruction, and go down to the Simplification section, and go down to this Simplification, Quadratic Edge Collapse Decimation with Texture, so we don't lose any of our work. And here we can say how many points we want it to be. Right now it's 80,000 or 80,000 faces. Probably 8,000 would be good. Go ahead and apply. And that's a better, less dense mesh. Other things you can do before exporting is you can get rid of some of the extra geometry. So I'll show that. You can do that with this button here, select faces. And then you can just use the rectangle select. And then use this button at the end to delete it. And get rid of his backside. And say, yeah, that's good. Stop displaying the wires. Take them back to the way you looked before to see what we're going to get. That's good. Now I can just go ahead and export this mesh. I'll export the mesh as an OBJ file. By default, it's going to open to the MicMac temp folder, and that's fine. I'm going to go ahead, choose wavefront object. I'll just call them test and save that. And it's going to save the color normals for the vertices and the textures that were created. I'll go ahead. There we go. I can go ahead and open that up in something like Blender. Delete the cube and import the OBJ. I'm in Documents. I'll go up to where my MicMac temp folder is. There's the test object, import. There he is. Let's give him a little color. And there we go. So right here in Blender, have pretty much the same thing that was in Meshlab. In this section, I wanted to show an alternate way of fixing the text at the bottom of the phone book here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer, not duplicate. And bring back the original points and recreate it. Remeshing simplification, Poisson, screen to Poisson, and apply. Okay, close that. Also wanted to get all the images back so I can see the error. I'm going to go to Filters and create the texture. Parameterization, texture from registered rasters. 1096, and apply. Close that, and I'm going to set the visibility so it only shows the texture mapping and shows the problem here in the lower part of the phone book. Now, an alternate way to fix this is to use this button here, which is the Show Current Raster Mode. From before, I already know that ET008 is the problem, so that's the one we want to fix. So we select that. That shows the view from that camera. If I were to switch cameras, it would switch the view. But this is the problem one. You can hold the mouse wheel to see the difference between the texture and the mesh. And I'm going to switch the mesh out for just the points. That way it's easier to tell the difference between the image and the model. Now we choose this button here, raster alignment. And we get this dialog. I want to add a new point. Select the line, pick the current point on the model. Then I'll use the mouse wheel to, let's try that again. Okay, I'm going to delete that point and try again. Sometimes get stuck at this point. I'm not sure what's happening. Maybe if I push escape, go back into the tool. Okay, mouse wheel is working again. Start the tool. Okay, I had to press escape several times to get out of there. Okay, let's try that again. Add a new point, select the line, pick current point on model. I'm going to click over here at the end of the text. I have to double click. Then I pick current point on the image and wheel mouse and double click to pick the corresponding point. You can't see it though. But it shows here in the line 77 and 385 for the 2D location. So I'm going to go ahead and add another point, select it, pick current point on model, mouse wheel to get to the end of the text again, double click, and pick current point in the image, mouse wheel to get back to the image, and double click there. And again, new point, current point on model, pick the highlight, double click, pick current point on image, mouse wheel, and double click on the image. And I'll add a couple of more points. You can barely see the outline of this portion of the image, so I'm going to add that in. Add a new point, put it on the model. See, looks like it's right here. All right, got a point. And pick the same point in the image. It looks like it was already pretty close. I'm going to do one more. I'll pick the top of the T. And double click, pick it in the image, and double click again. Go ahead and apply the information. Give me some errors. Yeah, that error looks a little high, but it's probably okay. I'm going to close out of the tool. And get out of this show current raster mode. Now bring back the Poisson mesh. Make sure it's selected and do the filter texture, texturing from registered rasters again. And apply. Close that. I'm going to show only the texture result. And there you can see it moved it. Looks like it moved it a little too far. But it does show the technique for lining up the images for when you want to apply the texture. And that's it. In this section, I wanted to show an alternate way to create a UV texture map. That's under Filters, Texture. And instead of using parameterization plus texturing for registered rasters, you can come down here to Project Active Rasters, Color to Current Mesh, filling the texture. And I'll set that to the same size and apply. Okay, that's right, it can be used as a second step. I'm going to go ahead, texture, run the same as before. Parameterization texture from registered rasters. And it doesn't matter, it's going to be replaced. Close that. And now we can do the second one. There's probably a more direct way to get the UV textures, but UV textures are in place, and now we can use this alternate method. There we go. Project active rasters color to current mesh, filling the texture. Put that to the same size again, and apply. Now we'll go through this process. According to other videos, one of these two methods is better for a small number of images, and the other is better for a large number of images. But I'm not sure that that's still true, because it was an old video that I heard that on. I'm going to go ahead and close, and we'll see what that looked like. Yeah, I think this is the one that's good for many images, because it sort of merges the images together, and you get this ghosting effect like you have here with the ET, and down here on the words in the phone book and the icon over here. So if you had a large number of images, I think that would kind of average out and clean itself up. So for a large number of images, which is not the case for this one, you'd want to use the second technique, filters, texturing, and do the second step of project active rasters, color the current mesh, filling the texture, after an initial run of parameterization plus texturing from registered rasters. Right, one more thing. I wanted to try running that without ET008 being active. See if that got rid of this ghosting. I'm going to go to Filters, Texture, Current Active Rasters, Filling Texture. They're the same size and replace what's there. Let's see what this looks like. All right, that's done, and that does look better. And yeah, for this small number of images, I think that's a better result. Okay, I think that's it for the entire video. Thanks for watching. I hope it was useful. And a little follow-up video. I wanted to go back into the MicMac GUI and compare the results of TI Punch and Tequila to what you get with the Meshlab. So I'm going to go to TI Punch, and now I get a slightly better result if I reduce the depth. So I'll reduce that down to 7 and run it. And there we go, got our mesh. Go over to Tequila. Give it the same resolution. In this case, it's a maximum resolution. And run it. And this is the result you get inside of MicMac with their experimental tools for meshing. They get a fragmented result with all sorts of colors in there. And it shows why you'd probably want to use Meshlab to do the meshing. Okay, that's it.